Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome, everybody, once again to the House of the Unusual podcast, your home for everything cool. Tonight, we have joining us is our special guest and friend, Chuck Caputo. I'm your host, Joe Pavlinsky. With me is Eddie Guevara, and us three will be inhabiting the house tonight to give you the best in podcast entertainment. So, Chuck, what's new, brother?
Not too much. Hey, it's great being here today. It's fantastic here in Pittsburgh. Great weather, guys. I tell you what, it was up to about 70, maybe 75 degrees, 73, somewhere around there. It was a little, but it was great, man.
Yeah, we're having some good weather. I think we got some rainstorms coming in here, and the pollen the last few days has been hell, man. My sinuses have been killing me. So, Eddie, what's new over there on the East Coast in Jersey?
Well, everything's really fantastic, Joe, and hello, Chuck.
Hello.
I basically have just finished. I spent all day yesterday and today redoing my site, or the site House of the Unusual, not my site, our site. And I think it looks pretty good, man. I'm excited with the new look. It was kind of a little tough when you try to integrate because what you get on a desktop and the type of view you get, it's not the same as what you get on a phone. But when you're doing the mobile app, when you want it to come out in the mobile, you want to make sure that the mobile is very, is working as good as it can. It's optimized as good as it can, because that's where most people do see our site. And so far, everything looks like it's up and running,
Yeah, the site looks absolutely fantastic. So if anybody hasn't visited it before or recently, head over to houseoftheunusual.com and definitely check it out. There's a free forum there. You could sign up and join and talk with some individuals that have the same interests as you. But check it out. There's also a link to the podcast if you need to know how to find us, and a lot of cool videos and topics on there. So what's that, Eddie?
One thing I also wanted to bring up is I've attached the House of the Unusual eBay store, where you can now access it through the website as well. Not only does it have its own shop, but you can go now to where it says more in the upper left-hand corner, where you can see the forum and you can see all the guides. Where you hit the more tab, you'll be able to link the eBay store itself. So you'll be able to also go to eBay through there. And on the right-hand corner on top of the website, you have a link to the podcast for any of those who don't have Shopify. I mean, not Shopify. They don't have iTunes or don't have Spotify on their phone, or don't want to do it. They can listen to it right off the website. And that's on the upper right-hand corner.
Awesome. Good deal. So Eddie's always working hard to bring you guys a user-friendly site and to keep it updated and full of some useful information. So definitely head over there and check us out. And before we get started today, just want to make a quick kind of advertisement announcement. Scary Monsters 121 is going to be hitting the shelves, if not already on there. It's available for order on the website. So if you need it, head over to mymoviemonsters.com. You could order it off of there. There's also a digital version, or you could check your local bookstore. Should be hitting the shelves very soon, if already not on there. I have an article in there. It's called Mighty Mesoamerican Mummy Movies. It's all about the Aztec Mummy trilogy. Great movies. If nobody's ever seen them, check out the article and then go watch the movies, or vice versa. Also, guest of the show, and I guess he's going to be on next week, I believe, is an article by Michael Mesmer. His article is entitled Of Monsters and Magic, Part 1, Smoke, Mirrors, and Monsters. And I haven't got a chance to read it yet because I just got my copy in the other day, but his article looks fantastic. It looks like he goes behind the scenes of some of the classic movies and kind of discusses how the movie magic was done. There's some tidbits on Houdini in there, and even on the first page, there's a looks like a copy of a mail order form from Inside a Comic Book. So check out his article as well. And there's tons of other articles in there by some of the regulars, Frank Delastrido, Don Smaraldi, and Kevin Nicholson. And it looks like it's going to be a great mag. I was flipping through it yesterday and a little bit today, just really checking out some of the photos because I didn't have a chance to sit down and absorb it. But man, there's some beautiful photos in there, a lot of behind the scenes. And I haven't been too up to date on my Mummy movies, so this might give me a little inspiration to sit down and revisit some of those classic Universal monster movies that I haven't watched in a while, and some of the more, I guess, little less known Mexican Mummy movies, which some of them I talk about, but there's plenty more after that. So that's all I got to say about that real quick.
It's kind of funny. I want to add to your story there of the book. There's a book called Alien Invasions, The History of Aliens in Pop Culture. It came out recently, not too long ago. It's by Michael Stein.
Yeah, you know what? My wife just got me that book last week, and I haven't had a chance to read it, but that looks really good.
It is a good book. I think it's the first time ever they integrate all the stuff of pop culture and aliens and everything throughout the ages. I got to admit one thing about the book, though. It's got great art inside. And another thing I want to ask you, what is this thing that every time I buy a book, you wind up getting the same book as me, Joe? What's the deal there?
Well, my wife works at Barnes & Noble as part-time, so anytime she sees a anything with horror or sci-fi, she always shoots me a text message with the cover. Hey, do you need this? Yeah, of course I need it. But yeah, she did pick me that book up when they got it. And you're right, Eddie. The artwork is beautiful. I love the artwork on those old pulps from the 30s and 40s, showing like the aliens and everything. Cool. Yeah, I mean I could only imagine being a child, or even an adult that during the 30s or 40s, because technology was just starting to come about then a little bit, and just thinking about could this really happen? Could aliens invade? Could it just would have been a really cool era. And then fast forward to a few years or decades, and then you live through the atomic age, and you have Roswell and all that, and it really kind of amps it up, of hey, this stuff could really happen in the very near future.
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell you, you mentioned my wife and I used to go there all the time, but then since the COVID hit, we haven't been there. Man, I couldn't tell you how long, but we look forward to it. It was always a good time to sit in there, get a cup of coffee or whatever, and you could go through some of the books. I mean, it was a fantastic time, man. I can't wait till we can do that again sometime.
Yeah, that was our little thing too before she started working there, because not much to do in Northeast Ohio. So we would, when I had the weekends off, we'd usually go Friday or Saturday night or both nights, and
oh yeah,
we'd go grab a coffee and go walk around, and we'd always see some of the regulars in there and talk to them, and
absolutely.
It was actually a pretty good time. So now she works there, so I usually go up on my own and while she's working, and I'll peruse around a little bit, but with all the restrictions and all that, it's just not the same anymore. So
no, it's not.
Hopefully they lift it, and things will get back to normal.
It's funny that you said that, because in my area, where you would think more restrictions would apply, it's pretty almost back to normal. I mean, even the stores are pretty packed, and you don't see anybody really spacing or anything.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, Barnes and Nobles, they did something with their they have very limited seating in their cafe, so there's only maybe 5 tables in there, but it used to be packed with tables and people, and you could sit there, have a coffee, and read a magazine or a book, hang out. And
you remember back a few
same over here. I mean, I love going to Barnes and Noble, especially when my son used to work there. I would go there a lot. The thing that's kind of interesting when we're talking about all the Barnes and Noble and stuff is, I love their they always have a section that has like books on sale, and they got some pretty good books there. And talking, when I just mentioned the Alien Invasion one, There was one that I also picked up the other day. It's like the whole story of the moon landing and stuff. But the book is phenomenal, man. It was like a $40 book for like 15.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
there's
prices.
always some good deals there.
Yeah, the prices are great. And you know what? You remember back? I remember a few years ago they actually had uh big chairs, the kind that are padded, and you could. I mean, it was very relaxing. Now, like you said, they have it just very limited seating, and it's in the cafe, and those chairs kill my back. I mean, holy smokes.
Yeah, they took those out a little bit. I think before COVID, actually, the one near us, because they were having a lot of. I don't know if this was the reason, but I know there was a lot of issues with, especially like younger kids. They would come in and take their shoes off and put their feet up on
Oh
the
yeah,
chairs underneath them, and the chairs were dirty. They were spilling stuff on. I mean,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
yeah. So
It was
I
getting too
remember years
comfortable.
ago they used to have wooden chairs throughout the
Hmm.
store, which those were nice. You could clean those real easy, but yeah, when they put those cushion chairs in, man, the younger generational kids, they get off my
Uh,
lawn. They ruined it a little bit.
You know what it is I think a lot of people are getting too comfortable with them, and they started getting rid of them altogether everywhere. But they used to have those chairs in every corner. You're right.
oh, they
Yeah,
were great. They were great.
They really were. The one of the things I was going to say is not too long ago, just before COVID started, some of the movie theaters in my area were getting to be very interesting because I forgot the name of the theater. I don't know if it was oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the movie company, but they had where there was actually like a lounge area on the upper floors where you can go for coffee and dinner. You know, it's kind of crazy. They were making it really more comfortable, and the
yeah.
chairs will all relax and recline back completely.
Well, that's what our movie theater did. They were renovating actually the whole theater, and you had those reclining seats, like everybody had their own recliner, and it had a cup holder, and you could sit there, put your feet up, and it was almost like being at home in your lazy boy.
Exactly.
So if a movie was bad, you could just fall asleep right there and be comfortable.
Yeah. I wonder how many people actually did. Especially, I used to go with my friend in work before. We used to always go whenever a movie premiere, and they would premiere at 12 midnight. Sometimes when you get out of work at, 12 and you used to go to those movie things, man, wow, it was kind of tough after like an hour and a half in the movie. You're like passing
Yeah.
out, man.
Well, I tell you what I'm really excited for is, we every once in a while we have two um drive drive-in theaters near us. They're both about 45 minutes away, and uh, they usually have a pretty decent schedule there. They'll have one screen where they'll show back-to-back new movies, and another screen where they'll usually do like back-to-back 80s movies, like say Ghostbusters with Goonies, something like that.
Yeah,
Well, coming up in June for their Monster Bash, June 11th through 12th, they're doing it's called Monster Bash Under the Stars. So they're doing it at the Riverside Drive-In in Vandergrift, PA. Which, Chuck, I'm sure you're familiar with that.
yeah. That's not that far. Yeah, that's off of Route 28.
Yeah, so they're doing movies there, and all night. I think the last movie starts playing at 2 a.m. So
Cool.
that's going to be really cool to be out there, because they're allowing us to bring tents and everything where you could, camp out there overnight, so you don't have to drive home in the wee hours and then come back the next night. So that's going to be cool, laying in a tent and watching a movie on the big screen there. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah.
It's funny that you said that. This is going to make you laugh, but when I was very young, there was a couple of drive-in movie theaters in my area. But since I grew up in Manhattan, I had them there. I mean, they were in New Jersey, but in New York, you had the theater right next to my home. In fact, where one of the theaters that I think I forgot was kind of like in the area where they shot Malcolm X across the Presbyterian Hospital. That's where I first saw King Kong in 1976 or 75, whenever it came out. But you know something? The point I was going to say is I never went to a drive-in movie theater. Isn't that crazy?
Really?
Wow.
No.
Wow.
I
Oh
never.
my man, you're missing out on a true
Oh,
experience.
oh man,
Well,
that I tell you, that brings back memories. When I was a kid, we had several of them close to our house, and our kids, our older boy, and they were fortunate enough to actually go to a couple of drive-ins. But since then, the vast majority of them in the direct area where I'm from out here, they closed. You know,
Yeah, yeah. We had one right over the PA line near me that closed up. I think in the mid or late '80s, and it was only maybe 5 minutes from me. We used to go there all
yeah.
the time, and man, it was a beautiful drive. And
Oh,
but yeah, we
fantastic.
there was a few of them near us, and they sadly they over probably the last 20 years or so they've all been finally torn down. Other stuff's been built there, but man, I there's nothing beats the driving experience.
Oh,
something though. In my area there was a lot. I think they closed all of them down. I don't know. I don't think New Jersey has any more left, but maybe one in South Jersey. But you know what's kind of crazy about that though? The reason those things closed down is because with the amount of people we have, especially in this area, if a movie was hot, I mean, you know how hard it would be to get in there, and I mean, how many cars can you fit? The area they need for a drive-in theater has to be huge, you know.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
I
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of tough, and I think I got a feeling that drive-ins are going to start making a comeback. I don't know if they're going to build any new ones, but I think the ones that are still in, uh, still up and running, I think they're going to start getting a lot more traffic. That people
well,
are going to start wanting them more than going to a traditional movie theater because
well,
we talked before. Everything goes in cycles.
It does. You're exactly right. You know what Eddie mentioned about how there was movies made in Manhattan. For some reason, Pittsburgh in the last 15 or 20 years, it's been a hotspot, man. They made a lot of movies out here. And this little town I live in, it's called Wilmerding, PA. You can look it up on the map. It's about 19 east of Pittsburgh. For some reason, about 30 years, going on 30 years, they've closed this town down. I couldn't tell you how many times, and they shot different segments of movies here. I mean,
Oh wow.
yeah, like about a year ago, our whole street was closed down. I had to park the vehicle down the road and walk up to the house. I mean, for some reason, this particular little town, I mean, they shot different segments of American Horror Story here. There was a Russell Crowe movie that they shot a segment a couple years ago. I mean, I don't know why, but this little town, it's crazy. They numerous times, man.
no. Well, what I meant to say is not only did they shot films. What I'm saying is, growing up in New York, there's no room in New York for
There's no
movie,
room. Yeah.
drive-in theaters. But I'm
Yeah,
going to
you'd
tell you,
really have to take a drive to find one.
yeah, you do. But here's the whole thing, though. Like I said, maybe because of this COVID thing. I mean, although the movie theaters were really getting revamped, and now the COVID shut down a lot of them, and it's true. I've read an article where they're saying that the drive-in theaters kind of making a slight bit of a comeback. But you know what, though, I really don't see them coming back as strong as when they were. Um, because I mean, the amount of people. I mean, in your area, maybe you have a lot less people, but up here,
Oh yeah.
you go. I mean, right next to my. Let me give you an example. About 10 years ago, I had maybe one or two theaters, three theaters around the area. Right now, they opened within a mile of each other 2 14 plexes. That's 14 movie theaters. And when you go in, man, they're so packed. Right before COVID, that usually every single showing was 500 people, whatever fit in each of the
Oh,
movie theaters. So you have thousands. I think they make their money the most. They didn't make it even though they charge you like $10, $15 to get in per person, but they were making it with the popcorns, man. I went there and I ordered two large popcorns, right?
yeah.
And I'm sorry, two large Cokes and one of those big buckets of popcorn. The thing was like $32. I'm like,
I
are you
know.
kidding
I
me?
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
they make their money on the food, definitely.
yeah, because
Wow.
they don't make really anything on the ticket sales. Everything comes from their snack bar, and that's the same with the drive-ins. But like I said, I don't I think it would be too expensive to build a brand new drive-in. I don't think you would get your money back from it, right away. But the ones that are still up and running, I think they're going to start doing a lot more business than they've seen, in the past, few decades.
Now here's one thing I want to ask though. I know it sounds crazy, but I know it's probably shocking to hear that I've driven by a movie theater, a drive-in movie theater, but like I said, I've never been in it.
Ah,
And one of the things I always ask myself is, how the hell does the cars go in and out? Like, how do they park and get in their spaces? You know what I mean? Because they're one
well,
next.
yeah, you know what? I don't think getting in, but getting out once the movie did shut down. I remember there was long lines when you left the place. I remember going down the different roads. You know, like there was roads that was covered with cinders, and there'd be little lights guiding you down the road. Yeah, there was big lines when you left, but I don't think it was too bad getting in, if I remember
Look,
correctly.
if I'm correct, I think the movie theater, the drive-in movie theater, became popular because when you took your girlfriend, you're there in the car and whatever.
Oh, you got
But
your
I mean,
privacy, sure,
yeah,
yeah.
but let's be honest, you're in the back seat and you're trying to watch it through the windshield. Is
Yeah.
is it really that fun? I mean, I don't know. I've never done the experience, but I'm like, I don't know if I really want to see that. You know?
uh,
You know what it is. It's definitely an experience.
it's an experience, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from the back seat, yeah, it's kind of tough. But a lot of people would, they would bring chairs and sit outside of
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. They would put chairs up. You know what, Joe? I go back to the days when you actually hung the metal shows,
right.
back when I was younger. But then in later years, you would tune in your AM radio or whatever to a certain channel, and then you would get it through the radio.
Right. Well, the one near me, I can't remember which one it is, but you had the option to do either or. So they still
Either,
had the old time, ones that
yeah.
you could hook on the window, or you could tune into the radio. But
Hmm.
the few times I've been there, I found that the radio one sometimes is a little staticky and not as good as the actual microphone on
Right.
but you get better sound coming from the stereo than that little microphone. Now I don't know if they have revamped those over the years. I don't know too much about that, to get better sound, but
You know, Joe. I gotta tell you guys, I know exactly what you're saying, and I know where you're coming from, and I agree with you. But I guess growing up in my area and having this ultra modern movie theaters where you go inside and you're, like things like almost coming out at you.
Oh
I,
yeah,
I kind
absolutely.
of, I don't think I would really want to waste my time going to a drive-in theater unless I got some very hot babe and I'm just going there.
well, I tell
But
you what, I did I went to an IMAX one time. I think it was up in Cleveland when the first Hulk movie came out in, oh gosh, what was that, 2003 or 4, something like that. And
Yeah.
we actually, the girl I was dating at the time got us tickets, and we actually were in some type of almost like a balcony, and we actually had dinner, had our own waiter that brought us food, and we actually had dinner while watching the
Uh,
movie. I mean, it was
wow.
really cool, but there's pros and cons to movie theaters and drive-in, so it's just I
well,
guess how you're feeling at the
I
time.
I think when you're in a movie theater, there's very little cons in a nice movie theater with a relaxed chair. In a especially if you're trying to see a good movie in a drive-in, like I said, I understand exactly where you guys are coming from, the era, the time, the nostalgia to it. But I
Right.
myself, I don't know if I would really want to even go to one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You
All right, I
follow
guess
me?
you'd have to you got to try one out, Eddie, and just to experience
Because
it once.
here's my experience. Here's my experience. Where I work at, every the last couple of years, they were bringing up this huge 50 or 75-foot inflatable screen. It could have been 40-foot. I don't remember quite. In the park, and they play movies at night for free. Man, one day I tried to do that, and the mosquitoes were killing me. And I'm like, get the hell out. I said, I'd rather be home
You'd rather
instead of
be
out
on,
here
yeah.
where it was freaking hot as hell. And, it's kind of like the same thing when we're talking about haunted houses. I went to Florida, good example. It was dark at night. I forgot where my brother took me. They were having an outdoor carnival. But, once it gets like 8, 9 o'clock, it's like pitch dark, especially in Florida, right? And I remember this is one haunted house. And I think I mentioned this in an earlier podcast. And I'm going to go to stand in line to go in it. And without realizing, as I got closer, I go, what in the world is this? The whole thing, I mean, it was crazy. There was like those steel gates things going up and down, up and down. There must have been 500 people standing in line, and I
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
see them because it was dark. And I said, no way, man. But you know what it was? How hot it is, and how it's very, very, very annoying to have all that in, the icky feeling and all this stuff in your skin.
I take it you're not much of an outdoorsman.
I honestly am not. I am not. And this is funny because I grew up in a farm, but I am not an outdoorsman. I hate the outdoors late at night. It's fun to walk, but I kind of don't want to be there with the mosquitoes and with all that stuff happening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love the outdoors. A few years back in our city, we had up at our park, they did the same thing. They had an inflatable screen with a projector and some nice sound, and they would play, some movies up there. And sadly, it wasn't getting too much of a crowd. I mean, it was free, but it just wasn't getting too many people. I think I believe it just wasn't advertised well enough. But
right,
I would go up there and watch it, and man, it was really cool to sit under the stars and watch a movie. And even in downtown Youngstown, they were. I don't know if they I think they stopped doing it, but during the summer, I think it was every Saturday, they used to do a movie out on the outside. They would set up this little kind of like it was a big screen. I don't know if it was made out of wood or what it was, but they would play movies out there. And me and the wife went and watched Creature from the Black Lagoon, and they would get pretty packed out there. They'd get about 100 or so people. And
wow, that's cool.
I tell you what, watching Creature from the Black Lagoon
would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a great movie? Wasn't that a fantastic movie?
And what I thought was the best of it is that there was a lot of young kids out there from maybe 8 through their teens. So it was nice seeing them out there really enjoying a classic movie, because
exactly,
you don't see many young kids watching these black and whites, but they were out there. And they, when that creature, their eyes were, because I was watching the crowd. I'm like, I want to see how these kids react to it's very primitive special effects and all that. But man, when the creature first came on the screen, their eyes were glued, man.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was really cool to see. But sadly, they only, they did mostly newer films. There wasn't really any other classics besides that. I would have liked to seen them maybe do one Universal monster, at least a season or something.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Something though, when it's The Creature from the Black Lagoon is definitely a movie that'll be nice to watch in that scenario, that type of scene. But
yeah.
But you know what though, it's I think would be a nice thing is like every time, like on Saturdays, remember how the different TV channels had adding to what you're saying, they had the weekly movies, and what was it called, something cinema or whatever it was, and they play classics.
Yeah,
they've stopped doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like on Saturday.
Are you talking about Saturday night or Saturday morning?
No, Saturday mornings they had, Sunday mornings they had, like the Sunday matinee or whatever it was, and they showed a lot of classic films. I'm surprised that they don't take like, the Universal movies and all that stuff and play them. Like a lot of TV stations don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I remember in the 80s and early 90s, usually like Saturday afternoon or Saturday or Sunday afternoon, they would play, after the cartoons and all that and wrestling, they would play, a classic, horror movie, whether it was Universal or, some other studio. But yeah, they don't do that anymore.
That's why what is it called? Pluto?
That Pluto TV.
It's become so popular. And
yeah, that's pretty cool.
But there's another one also called, one is Pluto and one is called Cozy TV or something like that. The reason they do that is because actually all the TV channels now are filled either with infomercials.
Oh, it's terrible.
They're filled with political garbage.
Yeah.
And the worst part of all is, oh my gosh, I mean, I know people like crime scene stuff, but my gosh, if it's not live TV, 48 hours, live TV detective files.
And you must have been reading my mind, because I was right before this podcast. I had Pluto TV on. And I was watching the original House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price.
Oh, that's the best, man.
I was loving the movie, and I was just bitching to my wife about it, because for the last few weeks on Pluto TV, when you're watching something, it'll cut off whatever you're watching and it will go to Paramount, and it will have a thing on there. It says, Paramount, get your free trial and this and that. So you have to try to click it off, and then if you go to dismiss it, sometimes it restarts the Pluto, and
Oh no,
it's been so annoying.
that's
They were getting right in the good part of House on Haunted Hill where the skeleton pushes the girl into the little water pit, and then Paramount popped up, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! So I went to go dismiss it, and it restarted my Pluto all over again, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me, man!
You know that I'm such a fanatic for that film, The House on Haunted Hill. I love that film so much. I actually have like 10 copies of that, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
wow.
yeah, I'm serious. I've gone on eBay, and every time, see, because I like my two favorites are the Bat and that one, The House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, are you talking about the Devil Bat?
No, not the Devil Bat. That's Bela Lugosi. I'm talking about the Bat with Vincent Price.
Okay.
Agnes Moorehead plays the lady in that thing, and that's the lady who played the mother in oh my gosh, what's going on? I forgot. Bewitched. Agnes Moorehead.
Right.
Yeah, she played the mother on the Bewitched show, and she's the one that acts with Vincent Price in that movie called The Bat. It was done in the 50s, and then after that, shortly after that, they did the House on Haunted Hill. But I think Vincent Price is phenomenal in those films.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's a really, really good film.
Absolutely. I haven't seen House on Haunted Hill for such a long time, so I was kind of happy to see it on, and then
I guess you didn't get to watch
Paramount
the whole thing.
Came on.
Yeah, I was gonna say you didn't watch the whole thing then.
No, I caught it maybe about 20 minutes in, and I was just sitting down to eat, and I was watching it, and then that came on, and the Paramount thing, and it screwed it all up. But I was like, son of
you know what? You know what you reminded me of? I've been trying to get a little special box there for Dr. Saab. And he wanted something he wanted to order as a kid, and I have it. Several months ago, I had it in my hand, right? It has taken I think it might have called up the Twilight Zone and maybe went there in one of the shows and disappeared for good or something. I've spent the last 2 weeks like literally taking apart my entire storage facility looking for the thing, and I can't find a piece of paper, man. It's just bizarre.
I'm sorry, Eddie, go ahead.
No, I was just saying no. That's all. I finished. It's just that it's kind of like what you're saying, the House on Haunted Hill. I think it's definitely the Twilight Zones took my paper, man.
Hey, but I wanted to ask you guys, I can't remember if I asked in a past episode or not, or just, when we were talking, have you guys, and we were talking about Vincent Price, have you guys seen The Mad Magician from 1954?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was great.
Oh, man, I tell you what, that's probably one of my favorite Vincent Price movies.
Fantastic.
Have you seen that one, Eddie?
I saw The Mad Magician a very, very long time ago. I have it on DVD, and you just reminded me that was one of the things I had thought about a few months ago to watch. And the reason was because the last time I went to Chiller, The Mad Magician, they were selling an original poster there. And the guy was asking like 180, and I was hoping I could get it for under 100, and believe it or not, like a bubblehead that I am, somebody went and bought it for the price. The asking.
I would have snatched it up. I tell you what, they played it at Monster Bash a few years ago, and I had never heard of it before.
It's very rare. It's a rare film that Vincent Price did. But it's there.
And I was glued to the screen watching that. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was just such a fun movie, man. It was real creepy, and
it was a cool movie.
Yeah, it was just great, man. I mean, it was awesome. One of my favorite. Everyone has their favorite Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill, or whatever. But this one's definitely mine.
Oh,
well,
cool.
I need to watch that. Oh, I'm sorry, Chuck. Go ahead.
You know what? When I was a kid, and I finally found it. It's not Vincent Price. I watched it about a week ago. It's called Devil Doll. I don't know if you remember that. There was the guy was a ventriloquist in there. It was a really creepy movie. I think it was about 1962, maybe 64. You know what? It's a really cool movie. So if you guys didn't see it, check it up. Maybe if you search it on your cable system, it's called Devil Doll. It's really neat.
Was that the British one from 64?
I believe it was. Yep.
Or because there was a devil. The Devil Doll, it was 1936. That was a Todd Browning.
No,
with
no, no.
Lionel
This was in the
Barrymore.
Yeah, no, this was in the 60s. Yep. It was
Okay.
really,
You know,
really cool.
Yeah, if you've I've seen that one, but if you've never, I would check out too the 1936 one was really cool too. It had Lionel Barrymore and Marina
Okay.
Sullivan, who that's I always say that's one of my classic wives is Marina, because I loved her
Uh,
in Tarzan movies.
Hey, this stuff all brings back memories, you know. I mean, I was just talking to my wife today about back when we were kids. I mean, well, even in the 60s, the 70s, and even up to the 80s. I remember back in the 70s, Rubik's Cube. I mean, that little cube has enamored me since I was a little kid. And there's like 43 quintillion combinations with that thing. I mean, it's just an amazing. I'm only average at solving this thing. I'm not real good at it, but I've known people. If you can mix this one guy I know, he could solve it in like literally 10, 15 seconds. It's unbelievable.
You know what I did? You know what I found the best thing to do with a Rubik's cube is to throw it in the trash.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like it. And then in the mid 70s, remember the pet rock? I'm talking about all this fad stuff came out. That was probably one of the dumbest things. I mean, but whoever came up with it made millions.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah. But yeah, speaking of Rubik's cube, I was a few months ago. I was, I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but I was watching. It was there was a documentary about a kid who he had something. I can't remember if it was Asperger's or something out
mhm,
something like
mhm.
that. But he was like a world champion
Oh
Rubik's
yeah.
cube person, and they were going to the events, and there was people like doing them blindfolded, which I have no clue on how
I,
that's even possible.
I
Because
know. And they do it with their feet. Sometimes they drop it on the floor and they use their
yeah,
toes.
yeah, I'm
It's
like
just
I played with him before for hours, and I couldn't get nothing. I just threw it in the trash and said, "You know what? I'm happy."
hey,
Hey, it gets very frustrating. I'm actually working on a magic trick right now in my like in my spare time. I've been messing with this. I'm actually building a Rubik's cube now. I'm not sure when I'll be done with it, but it works itself. So you can mix it up. You lay it on the table. You stand back, and it'll rotate. It'll spin. To like all the different combinations, and it'll solve itself.
Well, if you need someone to make one disappear real quick, I'm your guy.
I guys, I've never ever been able to do the darn thing. Only one side, and I just never liked even. There's something with me and puzzles. I like them. They're fun to have, kind of like the mysterious ones that are made of wood. Because I buy them just because it says it's hard to do. But for me to actually do it, I'm not too fond of it. But I wanted to bring something to you guys real quick before we get off that topic. Totally. We were talking about those films that were different films that were good from the 50s and 60s. Well, there's a film that's done by David Carradine. It's called Sundown: Vampires in Retreat. Did you guys ever watch that film?
I don't believe I've seen that. No, I'll have to look that
Uh-uh.
up.
Let me tell you that is a film that's got a twist. I'm not going to tell you what the twist is, but it's really good, man. I mean, I was glued to the seat because even though it's a classic horror film, the town itself, I'll say a little bit what the film's about. The town itself is kind of like a town where vampires are trying to be regular human beings, okay? And there's a twist to the whole plot there. And David Carradine plays the King of Darkness, Count Dracula.
I'll have to check that
No,
out.
I'm actually telling you, the film is really good. When it came out, even if you Google it, it's called Sundown, The Vampires in Retreat.
Hmm.
If you, when I tried to get that film on VHS, it took me a long time. It only came out one time or whatever when it was released. It's in color. It's not like a super old film. David Carradine, is the guy who played Kung Fu.
Right.
He's a very good actor, whatever. In my book, I liked him a lot.
Oh, he was
Um,
fantastic.
the,
Yeah.
Kung, the Kung Fu series from the 70s was, yes, it was not that great, but the one that they did in the late 90s,
Hmm.
early 2000, it was pretty good. Well, a little bit before he killed himself. I think that it was a really really good series, and I was watching it, but then again it came to, I don't know why they didn't continue, whatever reason they discontinued the series, but But anyway, as a film, that is one film I think you guys will find.
Hey,
And
I'm gonna definitely check that out. You know,
yeah,
I also liked David's old man, John Carradine. He was fantastic.
yeah, well, definitely. John Carradine did a lot of films, a lot of horror films.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't he on that film. My gosh, it wasn't Psycho. What was the film that John Carradine was in? That oh gosh,
Well, that sums it up. He was in a few hundred.
yeah, he
no,
was.
no, no, no. But there's one I keep thinking of him. I forget which. I never mind.
His voice was creepy and very distinctive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. His voice was creepy. It's kind of like his voice was kind of like that of Orson Welles. Well,
Yeah,
Orson Welles wasn't creepy. He had a really deep radio voice, especially when he did that invasion of Mars, like a Mars attack back in the 1930s, where people
right.
started running out. A lot of people don't realize that when they did War of the Worlds on the radio with Orson Welles, a lot of people think that this is not true, but it really did happen. A
Hmm.
bunch of people throughout the country started running and heading for cover because they made it sound like a
Hmm.
radio
Isn't that
announcement of
something?
some sort, I actually have a couple of copies of the War of the Worlds radio TV broadcast that was made like into CDs, and they had special edition CDs of it. So I have like 3 or 4
Hmm.
different versions. But that movie though, that's a movie you have to do now. There's also another thing that I was going to tell you. You guys are talking about puzzles, and this is something I also want to bring into into the conversation here. There's one particular famous magic trick, which is a bolt, and then there's a square cube on the bolt, and somehow a round steel ball goes through it. Do you know which one I'm
Oh,
talking about, Chuck?
yep. That's it's actually called the ball and bolt or ball and cube, I believe. Yeah, that's an old effect that goes back quite a few years.
I mean, I have it somewhere. I never did it, but I always saw it in ads. And when you mentioned the Rubik's cube, that came to mind.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I
Hey,
mean,
Eddie, were you thinking of John Carradine in House of Frankenstein
that's it. That
as
is it.
Count
Thank you.
Dracula?
Yeah.
Okay,
No, no,
yeah,
no,
that
no,
just
no, 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 no. In The Vampires in Retreat, his son David Carradine plays Count Dracula. You understand what I'm saying? What I'm talking
Hmm.
about, I know John Carradine. I'm thinking of him in many films. I could have been thinking of him in House of Frankenstein, but I'm talking about because we just mentioned the guy John Carradine, so I was just thinking that he was in many films, and I was picturing him in one of that. But Sundown, Vampires in Retreat, his son David Carradine plays Dracula in that movie.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah. Bruce Campbell's in that one too. I was just looking that up,
Yeah,
son.
let me tell you something. It's got a twist to it that none of you are gonna expect.
Yeah, I might have to
Okay,
check that out. I have never
it
heard of that movie.
I could say this much, Chuck. It falls kind of with what me and you believe in at the end of the film. So
Hmm. Okay.
you're like gonna say what?
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely check that out. Speaking of Dracula, there was a lot of people that played Dracula that looked really cool. I remember Frank Langella; he looked pretty good as Dracula, and there was throughout the years there was quite a few of them that looked really good for the
The
part.
scariest looking was this guy Lee Van Cleef. What's his Lee? What's the name, Joe?
On
Joe,
what?
the one that played Dracula.
Are you talking about Bela Lugosi?
No, Bela Lugosi is the original. I'm talking about the other guy, the one that played Dracula in the 70s. Because right now you're saying Chuck, you're saying there's a lot of people that played, right?
Yeah, a
Christopher
whole
Lee?
bunch.
Yeah, but there was one.
How about Jack Palance? I like Jack Palance too. He looked cool.
No, the one I'm talking about is scarier. What the heck is his name? My gosh, man! Come
Hmm.
on,
About
Joe.
Christopher Lee?
Christopher Lee. Yeah,
Oh yeah, he was looked great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he hated playing that role in Dracula. He
and
was
I
not
hated
for it.
him. I hated him playing the role. I didn't like that film.
Yeah,
I think
I wasn't too big of a fan on that. I tell you who I really like playing Dracula is and I have to look this up, but it was in the Mexican version of Dracula, and I can't remember his name, but it was the first time that fangs were actually used in the movies with Dracula. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he played a really good Dracula. I'm gonna have to look it up here and see if I could find it.
yeah, there's actually been quite a few that played Dracula, just like James Bond 007. There's been a million different guys that played that throughout the years.
When you're saying, Chuck, you're saying that the guy who played Dracula, what was the one you mentioned before, the name?
Frank Langella and Jack Palance. Those two really stuck out to
What
me
was
for
the
some
name of
reason.
the movie? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember the movie.
I'm trying to think of those guys because I guess you know what it is. I've been so engulfed doing this thing with the website all day today that my brain has kind of, like when you spend eight,
Sure.
10 hours in front of a computer and then you can't even talk straight after that.
Right. Hey, I've been there.
That's how I'm coming. I mean, got up after I worked the night shift last night, so I got up and I started redoing the site and working because all last night I did that as well. And when I got off it, it's like I'm trying to focus just on the computer
Oh,
itself
sure.
because it's.
Well, you did a very good job, Eddie. I did check it
Thanks.
out on the computer. It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. I'm trying to just get it so that people want to come in and it's not the same site stale without any change of scenery.
Sure.
The biggest thing is what I'm doing on the site. I'm making the site so that, I mean, when people go to the forum, great, fantastic. But I'm also doing the site more intuitive so that we can have more YouTube on it and people can see actual, YouTube videos, and the newest videos will be going there. So there's constant change.
Yeah, right.
Now, one thing I wanted to mention to you guys, Chuck put together, which I'm going to be uploading soon, probably early in the morning or later tonight. He built a robot with a little dog, and it's really cool, Joe. I mean, you know what, Joe? Once you see this, you're definitely going to start building your own.
I don't think I have room in my house for another robot. But real quick, going back, the movie I was talking about from Mexico was El Vampiro, or
yeah, I've heard of it.
I remember that.
Yeah, 1957, and it was German Robles who was the count,
okay.
And that was the first time that canines were showed, on the vampire. But
right.
Man, I thought he was a great vampire. I loved it.
It's called El Vampiro. I like the way you pronounce it, El Vampiro.
El Vampiro.
It sounds like Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Yeah. But yeah, I actually picked that one up on Monster Bash a few years ago. I think there was I believe there was a second one to that too. But I tell you what, the beginning of that movie, the music that's playing is probably some of the best in classic cinema, man. It's some of my favorite. So if anybody's never seen that, man, check out that movie. And right at the beginning where they're going into the courtyard and they're playing the music, it's real creepy.
I saw that quite a few years ago. I would like to look at it again. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, so El Vampiro. How do you say it, Eddie?
El Vampiro. El Vampiros.
But yeah, there's so many. I tell you what, a few years ago, I got really into to Mexican monster movies, and it was mainly because at Monster Bash they would do every Friday night Mexican movie night where they would pass out free Taco Bell burritos and tacos, and you would watch a Mexican monster movie. And I'd never heard of them before, and I started watching them, and down in the dealer room there was a guy, I can't remember his name. He was Cuban. He has a place in Florida where he sells movies and all that. And I was talking to him, and he was, I said, hey, what's some of the, I'm just getting into, the monster movies and all that, Mexican monster movies. What's, what do you recommend? I said, give me 5, good movies that you would recommend. And he gave me 5 of them. I went home and just devoured them, man. And
wow, that's cool.
The guy, he was from Fifth Dimension Films. I can't remember his name, but I tell you what, every year that I go there, I always pick up, a few more Mexican monster movies, and they're just fantastic. I mean, it's so gothic and creepy, and some of them are fun. I mean, some of them they really rip off the Universal monsters. They put their own little twist on. You could tell, they're just trying to skirt around the copyrights, but man, they're just they're real fun, real good pop.
Oh, yeah.
Especially a lot of the wrestler ones like Santo and Blue Demon. It's cool that they just call upon these wrestlers to go, fight monsters in the, that are in the city, and then they got a break from fighting to go. They got a wrestling match, and then they win the wrestling match, and then they got to go back to fighting the monster. So it's cool.
You know what's interesting too? I was looking at I was thinking about him. I looked him up. Remember Ray Castillas? We had him one time in our show.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Ray Castillas is one of the biggest, or probably the biggest, top stone mask collector in probably the world. And I was looking at his channel. He's got a thing called Basement of Horror. It's a very interesting YouTube channel he's got there. He's one of his episodes. He's reviewing Gregory the Bat. Remember that bat that was sold in Famous Monsters, that you could see the inside of the bat?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that, Chuck?
I don't remember that. No.
Gregory the Bat.
Mm-mm.
They actually sell for like $1,500. When I have one, but I don't have the box for it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's reviewing that, and he's reviewing the.
I'll have to check his channel
Caveman
out.
and the Gorilla Mask that were I remember the Caveman and Gorilla Mask from the Johnson Smith catalog.
Oh yeah.
It was always in their back cover and their ads,
I remember that. Yep.
So he's reviewing all that, and he's got the Top Stone and the Shock Monster. He's got the originals. I'm telling you, Dave Castillo in fact, I should call him up and see if we can get him back in our show soon. He does pretty well, but anyway, he does have a lot of those. The reason I brought his name up actually is because he plays a famous Mexican vampire with a top hat. I'm trying to remember what's the name of it. You're not familiar, Joe? I mean, you're the horror professional here, Joe.
What does he play? What is it with the top hat?
It's a guy. He kind of looks a little bit like. I think it's a take in Mexico of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, kind of. What the heck is the name of the? Gosh, man, I can't remember.
He's a horror host?
He's not a horror host. He's kind of a vampire. I'm thinking of him in my mind, and Ray Castillas always plays him. And
I have no idea.
Oh my gosh, what is that? Go ahead. I'll look it up for you.
That Gregory the Bat, I was just looking up on eBay. There's one selling for $1,200 and another selling for $900, both with the box.
Isn't that amazing?
I hated it as a kid.
That's pretty crazy.
I didn't like it as a kid. I don't know. It looked kind of creepy. I didn't like it. I bought it for like, I think $50.
It's just the chest that's kind of open. You could see the like the sternum and heart or whatnot.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Huh?
I tell you what, the box looks really cool, man. I'm looking at the box and it's got
Graphics.
Painted a picture of the bat with blood going around the border. It's really the box.
You know what it is?
Looks better than the bat.
Joe, that box is a takeoff. If you look at the 1950s, there was a game called Bats from Belfry. You ever seen that game in the 1950s, which is like a tower? It's supposed to be basically it's an archway, and the bats kind of like when you have monkeys in a barrel where you hang one from each other. It has a magnet, and one of the bats hangs over the top of the archway, and then you start hanging bats on it, and it falls down, whatever.
Yeah.
That box has kind of the same artwork as this thing. So I think whoever made that in the 70s might have copied that layout.
I'm looking at that now. Yeah, there is a little resemblance from it. And I tell you, that game looks really cool. Comes with like a little, looks like a castle with a bunch of bats on it.
I have it. I have that in a box. I bought that many, many years ago.
Oh wow! I'm looking on eBay see if there's any. Well, there's one listed on there with the box for $300. So they're not too expensive. Another one for $552, but no box. So
which is that though? You're talking about the
bats in the belfry.
Oh, yeah. Really, they're going for that much? I'm
surprised. There's another one with the box going for $350.
That's surprising. I thought something that would do like $50, $60.
No, that stuff's so in demand for monster collectors and all that. It's people, they put them up. I mean, I don't know if they're selling for that much. I'm going to see if there's any completed listings. One sold in the box for $51, another one for $100, another one for $150. So, around $100, $150 seems like the a decent price to pay
Yeah.
for them. But like they always say, for collectors, there's three things you got to look at: condition, condition, condition.
Isn't
So,
that the truth? Yeah. If we would have saved a tenth of the things we had when we were kids, I'm telling you, wow.
I could have retired years ago and went to the island. I could have been
Yeah.
doing my podcast from the beach.
Oh, man.
It's kind of like the same thing. The box artwork in the Shrunken Head game that you would use apples and shrink their heads was Vincent Price.
Oh yeah,
That was cool. That was neat.
Let me tell you something. The box itself is worth $50, not what's inside the box.
Just the box.
The box it's phenomenal artwork. I purchased one for actually $50.
Wow.
A few years
a
ago,
lot of those boxes go for good money.
Oh, yeah.
I buy a lot of GI Joe stuff from the 80s, and even a lot of that 80s, the toys from the 80s, their boxes, if you could find them, I mean, people are paying good money for even beat up boxes, and especially the old Star Wars from late 70s and 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Those boxes go for a good amount. And I tell you what, when I go to secondhand toy stores or something, I always look at the board games. And
Absolutely.
a lot of times I'll buy a board game if it's decent price just for the artwork on the box, because some of them are just fantastic.
I walked into a flea market a couple of years ago, and they were selling a GI Joe like a Moonlander, and it was the space capsule one, the Apollo capsule.
Yeah.
And when I noticed the GI Joe inside was John Glenn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they gave me that. I'm like, oh my God, this is the Mercury 7 from John Glenn. I go to the guy, how much you want? He goes, give me $1.98, $1.98 in Spanish. And I'm like, this guy has no idea. I gave him the $2 and ran.
Yeah.
That was a heck of a buy, man. It does a little bit over $1,000.
Oh, yeah. Hey, those GI Joes used to be, back when I was a young kid, they were so popular. Now my brother, he was 7 years older than me, and he had the coolest GI Joes. I mean, they had blonde hair, and I don't know, they were just different. They had backpacks filled with all kind of utensils, and it was really, really cool. His were probably from the mid 60s. Whereas
you're talking about the 12-inch ones.
Yeah, he had really, really cool ones, man. I don't even know what happened to them. I wish we would have saved them.
See, I never got into the 12-inch ones. I always liked the 3 3/4 ones that came out in the 80s to the 90s.
Right.
I years ago, a buddy of mine was selling his 12-inch ones, and he had a ton of them with some vehicles and clothing and all that. And he kind of wanted, I thought, a little bit too much for him, so I passed. But
right.
I never really got into those too much. But I tell you what, there are some of them that are really cool and outfitted to the
unbelievable. Yeah. Well, they had little tents. I remember little pup tents, and they were just neat, man.
Yeah, I could just see my wife coming home from work and me in the living room having a war with 12-inch GI Joes on the floor, sleeping in tents, and we'll make it realistic. Get up, it's time for kitchen duty.
Oh.
When you're saying about the my favorite GI Joe, I think it wasn't GI Joe, it was called Eric the Viking. Do you remember that one, that it came with the horse, and it was like a solid action figure, 12 inches, and it bought all the stuff of the Viking. That was pretty good. And I remember, I think the horses stuff went south for the winter, but the action figure itself, I had it for a very long time, and it was very sturdily made. It would stand up on its own.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was definitely. It goes for a couple $100 today. I mean, if you look it up on eBay, Eric the Viking.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at a photo of it. He had the Prince Valiant haircut.
Right, he's right. He's got the Prince Valiant haircut, and he's also like yellow, kind of yellowish.
Yeah, with like a really weird like pastel green uniform. Yeah, with like a brown, tunic or something over. Yeah, it looks pretty kind of weird.
It's kind of funny we're talking about this. I was trying to see if I could find the name of that vampire that Ray Castillo's play, and I see it here, but it doesn't say the name.
Oh,
what a coincidence! Yeah, but anyway,
you'll remember at like 4 a.m. You'll be calling us. Hey, I remember the name.
it's going to be brought up in another podcast. I'm trying
Yeah.
to see. Oh, wait. Ray is Yeah, let me see it. Hold on a second.
Well, next time Ray comes on, we'll have to have him talk
Oh
about
my God, what's the name of this? You know what's so funny? It's showing the vampire, but it doesn't have the name.
Ray, if you're listening to this, get a hold of Eddie because it's going to eat him alive if he doesn't.
Coffin Joe. It's called.
Okay, Coffin Joe. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
my
Joe.
gosh,
Okay.
man. Yeah, Ray Castillas has become very famous with that thing. He's played that part many times. Coffin Joe.
Where does he go to?
He goes to Monster Bash sometimes. He plays it there. He plays in different places. Now Ray, remember, he lives over towards California, I think, or up in the West Coast. So
I take it he has the whole beard and everything on.
Yeah, he does. If you go to his channel,
nice.
If you go to his YouTube channel, that I just sent you a link, and I think I sent Chuck, but Chuck doesn't have a. I should have sent it through the email. You'll see what I'm talking about. But you know, one thing also that we're talking about all this horror hosts and people that play Dracula, and one of the most fun toys, not fun, but I mean great looking box, was the Green Ghost game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got one of those. Yeah, those are cool.
I was able to. There's also that haunted house. Remember, it's by Marks or something. It's a huge game. It's like 2 feet wide by 2 feet tall.
Right.
I always try to get that. I never actually played it. I try to get it, but every time it was like over $200 and some dollars, and I didn't want to pay for it. And also, it takes up a lot of space because it's a huge box, you know.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I hate to cut in here, but man, we are at the end of the podcast here, man. That time definitely flew today. So, Chuck, thank you always for stopping on and joining us for our conversations into who knows what we were talking about tonight.
It's always it's always a pleasure, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, tonight, but right before the podcast, I say, so what are we going to talk about tonight? He goes, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? And we just kind of said, yeah, we'll fly by the seat of our pants. So that's kind of how we roll sometimes. But thank you for coming on, and everybody out there listening to us. Thanks again for listening to us. Tell your friends about our podcast and get them hooked as well. You could find this on your favorite podcast platforms. Go on there and give us a good review. Definitely head over to houseoftheunusual.com, the website. Eddie just revamped it. It looks absolutely fantastic. Check us out there and on our YouTube channel, House of the Unusual. Give us a like and subscribe. Eddie's always putting up some new videos up there of some very interesting stuff. So you'll spend hours on there. So Eddie, Chuck, thanks for joining us tonight. And everybody out there, thank you once again and good night.
Good night, guys. And bye-bye now.